What if we could learn from outstanding leaders in business, sports, and education from some of the best voices in corporate America? Lighting the Path is a series of interviews with industry leaders whose stories highlight strategies that build purpose-driven cultures, engage and retain top talent, develop drivers that create high-performance teams, and connect people to the vision of your company. Join us to hear from game-changing, talented leaders whose paths make a difference at work and at home.
Example
go
of
ahead.
what you're talking about,
Yeah.
because you mentioned Deloitte. Deloitte
Yeah.
used to do as Anderson and others. They would do
Yeah.
the year-end performance review. Right at the end of the year, December came in, go back and look at everything everybody did, and everybody hated the performance reviews because of the fact that they'd have to go back and rechronicle everything from the beginning of the
Yeah.
year. And a good friend of mine retired from GlaxoSmithKline Beecham, which big pharmaceutical company.
Yeah.
He hated his because at the end of the year, they would sit down, they would talk to him, and he'd go get his thing out, and he'd put some stuff in there, turn to his boss, and he'd get his token increase. He goes, that's a manufacturer thing. Here's what Deloitte did. Deloitte went through and killed their year-end performance review. And they sucked that all the way down to doing monthly evaluations based upon what are your top 5 things that you need to be working on, period. A friend of mine launched an entire software program called The Big Five. And they did a monthly discussions with manager and leader on here's the 5 things I'm working on, here's what I've done with these 5 things. And so with what you're talking about is that by shrinking time frame down, what it does is that here's what I wrote down as you were talking about that. Shrinking time frames, increases my ability to be nimble.
Yeah.
Increases my ability to be nimble. Last story I'll share with you on this has to do with Russia. And whenever before it blew up, and dissolved, and it's gone through its rebuilding back then. Good friend of mine was working for Amoco, which merged up into BP. He was based in Moscow, and his job was to fly to Siberia and do all this stuff and manage the production fields. And then all of a sudden, Russia blows up, and all the contracts that they had within Russia were gone because Russia blew up in all these different states. And so here's what they had to do. I talked to him and said, so how did you survive this? He said, we had to learn, and this is what fits in with what you're talking about. We had to learn to make our decisions on a 24-hour cycle, meaning that whatever we're going to do today, we know we will probably remake this decision tomorrow because our circumstances will change. But they couldn't wait for those circumstances to change. They had to make decisions based upon what they know now. And so what happens is you're talking about whenever we're dealing with this time of uncertainty, by shrinking this thing into a 12-week year, what happens is I make decisions based upon what I'm doing now so that I can take action, reevaluate at the end of the cycle.
Let me add a layer here.
Please.
I'm sorry interrupting.
No,
let me add a quick layer here. So you're right that it's in a 12-week, but but inside the 12-week, we're not letting you off. Every week, there's a weekly review of your performance. Okay? So it doesn't stop there. There's a mini feedback loops. I mean, what you told is an extreme case, extremely interesting.
Yes.
Okay, and is a case of uncertainty, right? I told a whole country, and not just a small country, right? Huge country like Russia, with all basically the collapse of communism and so on. So they were operating on a 24-hour cycle. I mean, and it's nuts, and it's really interesting how they actually reacted to that and were able to perform. That's actually a very interesting case. But putting that aside, I mean, hopefully not everybody is facing such uncertainty. I mean, but the fact that you do it in 12 weeks, you still, every week, you still need to kind of score yourself, maybe sit with your superior, sit with yourself, and just evaluate your performance, doing like a mini performance review. I mean, no more than 10, 15 minutes. I mean, we don't want to, overburden. I mean, there's also a degree to what you can handle on a weekly basis and a quarterly basis. We need to be realistic as well. We want the system to work. So the added layer, it's not just 12-week, but you know exactly how to adjust yourself also, almost on a weekly basis, okay? Because you have a weekly plan, okay? So even though you're working in uncertainty, you are very planned and focused. You have a weekly plan, which you can then measure yourself. How did I do compared to what I planned to. Okay, and make those minor adjustments. And at the end of the 12th week, you do the bigger review and then move on to the next cycle. So I just wanted to add this layer of a feedback loop that you have inside. So I have feedback loop inside a feedback loop.
Yeah, Ben, I love what you just said. That's important. One of the things I've taught over the years is the power of grading yourself daily/weekly. Of the 5 things that are most important things that I need to get done today are, and have that planned out. And then at the end of the day, go back and measure yourself. Did I get 4 done, 5 done? That's an A. If I only got 4 done, that's a B. If I only got 3 done, well, that's a C. Well, what I found is that it's the ability to go and look at that and not pull out the whipping stick if you didn't do it, but make adjustments for tomorrow or for next week so that you can make whatever adjustments so that you don't repeat a C day. And I found when I was doing that, if I didn't have an A day, I'd make adjustments to make sure the next day I did. And I very seldom had 2 days in a row where I was off, but it's the ability to focus. And I love this thing about having hyper focus on the steps that need to be taken. Can you tell us just kind of a quick overview of what sort of the structure of what the 12-week year looks like? And
I'll give you a quick overview of how it works. So we're going to do an anatomy of a 12-week year cycle. Oh, excuse me, 12-week year. I mean, I have to be consistent.
That's right.
12-week year. That's very important, Ika. It is a cycle, but the mentality should be this is a 12-week year.
We're living with that.
So basically, it starts, let's say a week before. Okay. So let's say you already have a vision in place. So we're not going to talk about how to craft the vision. That's a whole theory by itself, backed by science and research and all that. But you do need to have like a certain 3-year vision. So something to anchor yourself to the future, to your future self. Okay. That's very important. I mean, obviously in the world of uncertainty, sometimes it's not extremely clear where you're going to be in 3 years, but at least in terms of your identity, your values, where you want to be generally in your life. So you have this anchoring vision 3 years into the future. And now we're going to break it into the present by trying to form 12-week year goals for the next 12 weeks, okay, which will progress you toward your vision and towards your goals, okay? So you have the vision, you're now starting to plan the 12-week year, you're going to do weekly plans, you're going to determine what are like you said, the 5 most important goals that you want to focus on, because if you start to focus on 10 different goals, that's not going to work. Okay, 80% of the cases that I see, once people have more than 5 goals, let's say 7, 8, 9, 10, it starts to crack because you're just spreading yourself too thin. So obviously there's some mini goals that you need to work on, but they're related to the top goals. So you have those 5 goals that you're going to focus on. These goals are moving you towards your vision. Okay, so remember, we're tying the goals to your vision because that creates this amazing focus, because it's not just what I'm going to do today. What I'm going to do today that will move me forward toward that important vision. Okay, so once you set your goals for your 12-week year, you create the weekly, and then you break it down to the different tasks that you need to do during those 12 weeks. You plan your weeks, you do time blocking. Every week you measure yourself in terms of scorekeeping. I'm not going to get into the whole method, but it's not complex. We're trying to keep it simple, so it's sustainable, not making it too complex. But it's granular enough to really measure your performance. Did I do this task? Did I not? How did I progress with my goal? Using some numbers, and then you perform on a weekly basis. So there's this time unit, which is very important, the weekly basis unit, which is again it's long enough to start measuring your performance and making sure that you're on track towards those 5 important goals that are tied to your vision. And then at the end of the 12th week, you will take some time off, even a couple of days, because we found that you cannot just go from one cycle to the other. It's pretty intense, which is good, because people actually, in general, I think, prefer to work in some level of intensity and then take some time off. I think it's more natural, especially even working with teams, but also on a personal level. So you take some time off at the end of the 12-week year. You make a let's say a longer evaluation. You understand your performance. You gain insights. You you track and see and evaluate how much did I progress with my goals towards my vision. Do I need to make another adjustment? And then you plan the next 12-week year.
Yeah. And so there's something that's jumping out of this that I don't want us to lose.
Yeah.
And that's from a priority standpoint. I think of all the labor and man hours and time and thoughts that goes into putting together the annual plan. Right. And I've watched this. October, November, people start thinking about December.
It still happens. It still happens with annual plans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And here's what's interesting.
But by March, it changes. Everything changes. So these annual plans are almost.
But here's what you made me think about, Dan, is they spent all that energy with that plan. Mm-hmm. And what I've looked at over the last 15 years of consulting I'm doing, the number one area of growth that across the board, almost everyone I talk to needs to reprioritize is the time that they spend on planning, because their plan turns into a to-do list, not a plan. And there's a difference. In other words, I get my tomorrow, I get my sheet out and I go down and I put, tomorrow I got to do these things. That's my to-do list. That's not a plan. And what happens is, what you're talking about is that for a leader to slow down and to commit time on a quarterly basis to go back in and look at what's going to be my plan for the next 12 weeks. I'm going to put that in there.
That's strategic thinking. That's exactly it. Right. It's not what task I'm going to do.
No.
You need to be strategic. You need to think, what do I stand for? What's my vision? What's my overarching goals? Break it down to smaller goals and then do a real planning like just you talked. That's strategic thinking.
Yeah.
Right. Not just operational thinking. That's why I'm a productivity strategist.
That's it. And so when you look at this, is that by doing this shorter chunk, instead of this annual plan that you roll out, what happens is you're reprioritizing the discussion around planning, which is, nobody likes to plan, I don't think.
Yeah.
Because it feels like I do it in between things. They don't shut their day down. Tomorrow's my planning day.
Yeah.
It's like on the 21st of January, if you're lucky enough to hear this before then, I'm not sure when we're going to release this, but I'm hosting my 9th or 10th strategic planning workshop, where for one day we shut down, we go off site, we get about 20 people together, and people come together and work on that day. What do they want their plan to look like for the year? Both financially, career, spiritually, health-wise. And to spend that entire day just thinking about it. And I found that what's interesting is the people who've chosen to do it, some have not missed one. I mean, they've come back every year. And they say that this is the most important day of the year for them because of what you're talking about. Because they
Amazing.
And they prioritize, and that's what you're telling us we have to do. You got to prioritize planning in a way that for 12 weeks, we're going to do this. We're going to hyper focus. We're going to put our energy, our focus, and at the end of that, we're going to stop, just like we do in December, right? But what do we do? I'm assuming y'all do this in Israel. We have New Year's Eve parties, and people go and celebrate the New Year's Eve, and they go and shoot fireworks, and they go and they celebrate, and they take 2 days off. And just think about if you did the same thing with a 12-week year. You get a chance to have 4 New Years a year.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
exactly right. The annual thinking today is too long.
Mm-hmm.
For the world environment we're working in, when things are moving so fast, the uncertainty you talk about. 60 years ago, it was fine. The world was not moving at that pace. In the 21st century, where we're living today, a year to operate in is too long. Planning for an entire year, I think, is too long. Stop thinking about annual thinking. Start thinking about 12-week year thinking.
You bet. And if you think of the changes that are taking, you and I were talking about the evolution of AI. And I jokingly said, well, 10 years ago, AI didn't exist. And you corrected me. You said, Mike, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
AI didn't, which is true. And well, here's what's interesting is the way we know of AI today. Dan, what are your thoughts about this? What is AI going to look like in 3 years from now?
Well, there's a saying in Hebrew that prophecy was given to the idiots. With all the prophets in the Old Bible, the Old Testament, there were a lot of prophets.
That's right.
Right? Very, very extremely smart people. But still, even in the Old Testament, at the end, they say prophecy was given to the idiots. They knew exactly why then, and today it's even more relevant. So I'm not going to pretend that I can say what will happen in 3 years. What I can say is what happened actually in the last year and try to extrapolate what it means to us. Because just as a background, I also have a pretty strong tech background. I'm humbly saying, I want to stay humble. Okay, so I've
Anybody
been
went to
using
MIT
technology.
deserves to brag as much as you want to. So
Okay, thank you. I'll try not to, but it's important that people understand, because I did data science, I understand AI models. I did not program these type of AI models, which are large language models. I programmed something else. So that whole knowledge just went through the roof, excuse me, through the window, because now we have LLMs. But the thing is, don't believe the hype. Okay, what does it mean? We were promised in the last year, 2025, for instance, the AI agents are going to perform the way we work. They're going to take over. They will do whatever we want. We'll just need to give instructions to AI agents. I'm just giving you an extreme case. We are very, very far from that. Okay, in reality, okay, don't be too concerned with the hype. Most people don't really know what's going to happen in 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. That's my belief. So you have, in my opinion, so people I work with also obviously ask me those questions. I say, look, stick to the principles. Stick to the basic principles that will never change. Okay, which means be focused, focus on your priorities. Don't be concerned too much about what's going to happen with AI. Just, learn how to use it quickly, make the adjustment that we talked about and all that. You really shouldn't be too concerned about it. As long as you're aware of it and you understand that this is a tool that you can use, and obviously you need to keep tab of what's going on and make sure that you're using it in a very smart way. Don't be concerned about what's going to happen in 3, 4, 5 years. Stick to basic principles, be productive, be strategic, plan yourself, be focused, and you'll be fine. That's my 2 cents about it.
Yeah, but it's a great thing because of I'm dating myself with this, but when computers first came in vogue, they said that computers were going to totally change our work environment, that the government was actually doing studies on what will people do with all the extra time in their hands because of computers, because our work week is going to be maybe a 32-hour work week, and what's going to happen to that extra time? And the exact opposite took place. It's
exactly.
It's like it increased workload, and companies said we need to get more done with fewer people because with computers, all kind of different things come into play. And so I think that's great advice, is that I don't think we need to worry about what the AI is going to do for us in 3 years. The cool thing is that we don't have to worry about 3 years. We need to worry about the 12-week year. And what do we do in this shorter time frame, and have the same type of commitment, same type of accountability, and same type of focus on the key aspects that we need to drive, so that at the end of that year, we celebrate what we've done, we recalibrate, and we launch a new year. And that's where you get power. I call it the compression theory. When you compress space, when you compress things, what do? You create energy. And that's the magic of what you're talking about. Dan, thank you so much
that's
for
exactly
sharing.
it. And I would add that you also adding if you think about the fact that you're integrating your vision into this, okay, you are taking into account the long term, even though you're compressing the time. The beautiful thing is you're both compressing the time, but you also keep an eye on the long term.
Yes.
So you're thinking about what I'm doing in the present to move me forward in the future.
You bet. Spend time with vision. So if anybody wants to connect up with you, Dan, we'll put this in the show notes, but what's the best way to find you?
My our website, 12weekbreakthrough.com. I mean, I assume you're gonna have a link for that. You can see all the information and everything. There's tons of articles that explain a lot of the stuff inside the system. So you're always welcome.
Love it, then. So I look for him on LinkedIn, connect up with him. He's got a great network. And this is the guy's a thought leader on productivity. It sounds like a simple concept, and it is. But you know what? The challenge we have, it's not easy because we're human beings.
Exactly.
And, we have a life to live. All the factors that come out. This is just a way of being able to achieve the things and dreams and visions that we have.
That's exactly right. Spot on.
Powerful message.
Can't say it better.
Thanks for this time, Dan. It's been great visiting with you and best to you.
It was fun and pleasure and an honor, and thank you very much, Mike, for having me.
Thanks for joining us today on Lighting the Path, Strategies for Tomorrow's Leaders. If anything in this podcast speaks to you, if I've challenged you, or if you want to spend time digging into this subject a little deeper, or if you disagree with me, reach out. My contact information is on our website, lightingthepath.net, or email me at mike@mikelejeune.com. Also, look for me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect our networks. Keep lighting the path for those who choose to follow you. It's more than a responsibility. It's an honor.